Forever. Dog.
Just between us. Just between us.
Hello, I'm Allison Raskin. I'm a writer, mental health advocate, and I'm pretty mad.
I'm Gaby Turner. I'm a writer, bicon, bisexual icon, wink, and I was about to say I'm big mad.
Yep, today is a day to be furious.
Yeah.
We are recording this on June 24th when the Supreme Court just ruled to overturn Roe v. Wade.
Yup. And in that little hot piece of writing by Clarence Thomas, who I don't even know how
is he still allowed to be on the Supreme Court? I do not understand what is going on.
Well, he also mentioned gay marriage and sodomy laws. So that is coming down the pipe, I feel like. That is truly upsetting, especially because 2 days from now is the 7-year anniversary of the legalization of gay marriage. So what a happy anniversary to us. I don't know, man. I know that there's abortion funds. I know that there's people on the ground doing incredible work. I know Shout Your Abortion is doing incredible work. I know individual abortion funds are preferable to be donated to over Planned Parenthood in some cases. If you can find your local fund to where you live. But yeah, basically what's going to happen is it's just going to go back to being underground, which it has been in the past anyway. So they're not actually protecting kids or protecting women or protecting people with uteruses or protecting anybody. They're not protecting anybody as far as
they're controlling people.
No.
They're doing forced birth so that they can maintain a lower class.
And a workforce.
So they have a workforce, yeah.
God forbid an Amazon workshop not have just a bunch of little hands ready to do the work. I hit the mic. That's how pissed I am. Sometimes I'm like, to what end? And it's just to have a society that is, I guess, the lower class is just fully controlled. Because it's not about what it's actually about. It's never
they don't
just
care about children.
Yeah.
If you look at any policies that the conservative right pushes for, it is all anti-children. They don't care about universal preschool. They don't care about parental leave.
Right.
They don't care. They would rather take kids out. I saw this tweet that was they took a kid out of their home because the parents didn't have the resources to support them and then gave the kid to a foster parent who they gave the resources to support the kid.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Just give those resources to the parents.
Right.
It's unbelievable. But it's so we're big mad today. This is also just between us.
It's a variety show filled with heartfelt advice,
ridiculous games,
and brutal honesty. We are back in person, sitting together on this couch today.
So the world is falling apart, but in JBU news, we will now be releasing every episode as a full episode on YouTube.
Full video.
We'll
be together largely.
Yeah. And I think Gaby and I both had a birthday this month. And at least for me, this new year, one of my goals is to put more energy and time into JBU and trying to really grow the podcast. And part of that is providing the video. And also, if you guys want to help us grow the podcast, give us
Share
reviews.
It with your friends.
Share reviews. Say that we're back on YouTube. We're coming at you fast. We're coming at you angry. And
you're going to be able to watch the entire, I know you guys have asked. So you are going to be able to watch the entire episode all the way through on YouTube, the whole hour to hour and a half that we record. And you will be able to see our beautiful faces while you listen. And also, hopefully, largely, we'll be in the same room to do it. Sometimes I do have to go back to my cabin in the woods. But most of the time, we will be in person recording and you'll get to see all of it. We also, do we want to say that we're making a TikTok?
Yeah, we are committed to social media of it all because that's the way things happen. That's life, baby. And so I'm forcing Gaby to make a JBU TikTok to show that we're trying.
Yeah.
I said to Gaby, let's give it 4 months. We're going to give it 4 months of bringing you hot TikTok content.
Because here's the problem, is that the episodes of the show are so good. I think the show is amazing. I think we do such a good job. And then we're like, we don't want to be on TikTok, but we'll do it. We're gonna be on TikTok. We're gonna record
I don't
in
mind being on
person.
TikTok. I just don't really know how to do it, even though I did teach a university class about it.
Yeah, we're gonna make. So we each have our own TikToks, but we're gonna make a JBU TikTok, and you guys better effing follow it.
Please follow it.
Yeah.
Like it. Tell us what kind of content you want on the TikTok. We're thinking of really doing a lot of hypotheticals,
Mhm.
pulling some fun clips from the show, and then maybe I'm trying to get Gabby to commit to doing some bits with me. They're reluctant. They're not looking forward to it, but Melissa says that she will. So it might just end up being me and Melissa doing bits, and Gabby's barely on the TikTok.
Can you yeah, I'm here. I showed up to this recording probably like 10 minutes late with a coffee, and I feel like that's the energy I want to give you guys.
I was on time. I was on time and ready to go. I have multiple outfits in my bag. Now that we're back on video, here we go.
I got one extra sweater. Let's rock and roll.
We have an amazing guest today.
Okay, so this timed out actually pretty perfectly, unfortunately, ? But we have Gayla Turner on, who wrote a book called Don't You Dare, which is about finding out that her grandmother was a lesbian in like 1915, and Gayla herself is a lesbian here in the year of our Lord 2022. And so the book is about like digging into this big secret from her grandma's past. So cool. Such an amazing story. Also, just like to be talking about gay marriage now on this episode when we woke up this morning to it being under attack is, I just think, destiny.
I don't believe in destiny.
Okay, could you just like nicely
I'm
be
sorry.
like,
I don't know what to say because I get worried because I have clearly stated that before. And so now, why am I getting your head shaking at me, Melissa? You believe in destiny? Child?
she believes in Destiny's Child.
Destiny's Child.
Even Beyonce doesn't believe in Destiny's Child.
Yes, she does.
All right. And then later we're going to be talking about the hearings, right?
Yeah, it's a fun, bright, breezy
Can you imagine?
episode.
Okay. It will be.
Think about where we came from on our couch show to this. We're like, yeah, we're back on YouTube talking about abortion rights, gay marriage, and January 6th hearings. So we're going to have a fun time.
Allison's a blonde. Gabby's trans. We don't have time to unpack that. If you haven't seen us since BuzzFeed, get on board.
Things happen. People change. Okay. But first and foremost, the backbone of this show, we have got to answer a listener's question.
Okay.
So you know what that means. Hit it! International question! International question! International question! Alex, Amsterdam.
I've never been, but I really want to go.
I want to go so bad.
Let's go right now. The U.S. seems bad. Let's go to
I would
Amsterdam
live
right
in
now.
Amsterdam. I'd live pretty much anywhere but here. Okay. So Alex says, hey, howdy, hey. Love it. TLDR. How do I get more comfortable stating my needs with my friends, especially when I already know they conflict with what the other person wants?
Ooh, okay. We're getting into wedding drama, guys.
Get ready.
Buckle up.
I'm currently planning a wedding, and I'm in the stage of trialing/hiring hair and makeup artists. I have 4 bridesmaids, and I'm offering to pay for all of their services. Very nice. One of the 4 has stated that she will be doing her own hair and makeup. I was bothered by this on 2 fronts. 1, she didn't have a conversation with me beforehand. I had told them that I was, of course, willing to talk about it if anyone felt uncomfortable about having their hair and makeup done by someone else. And 2, she is not a professional hair and makeup artist. So I worry she will stick out in the photos I am paying entirely too much money for. And if all the other bridesmaids are professionally done up.
Okay.
I have so many conflicting
I know,
emotions
me too,
about
me
this.
too, me too.
We have a lot to dive into. Okay. Wanting to nip this in the bud, I tried to send her a voice message asking her thoughts on the matter because I had some logistical concerns I wanted to talk through, but wanted to know where she was coming from with her wants/needs. Long story short, she had a volley of frustrating texts where she was misunderstanding and just not listening to me. So I decided to wait until we could talk on the phone about it. We live very far apart, so in person isn't really an option.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I am almost sick with the idea of coming to her with the idea that what I want is not what she wants. My friend can be a little belligerent in getting her way. I always joke that I am a type A personality until a more type A personality comes around, and then I shift to avoid any butting of heads. I also have been known to come to the table with compromises before I ever state my actual wants/needs. I certainly don't want to fall into the habit when it comes to my wedding, but I also don't want to be a bridezilla/risk losing a friend. I also don't think letting it go is an option because if it's stressing me out now, it probably will on the day, and I don't want to even risk that. Also, I am more than willing to compromise on this matter. I just want to talk it through, but even that has me on edge because I worry she won't want to bend and will not want to be a bridesmaid/not be my friend anymore. How can I become more comfortable taking up space in friendships by making sure I at least state my needs? Or maybe the question is, how can I trust my friends to not get mad/leave me when I respectfully push back against them? I'm not really sure, but any/all advice would be appreciated. Also, I've been fans of yours since college, and I can't explain how much you both mean to me. You are so open and courageous and make me feel safe to change things about myself I once thought were my truths. Thank you for sharing so much and helping me and so many others feel not alone.
Okay.
I picked this question because I have this problem where I am terrified of ever bringing up a problem with a friend because, as you know, I've lost so many friends. But the example here is giving me some pause.
Okay. Yes. So the TLDR of how do I get more comfortable stating my needs with friends, especially when I know they conflict with what the other person wants. Yes, that is a really good question.
Great question. Huge question.
Huge question.
Would love to know the answer.
Yeah. I also want to say that I see this a lot with people where they come to the table with, okay, my partner does this, where they come to the table with the compromise already, a compromise that they know they don't want and they're not going to be happy with, but they approach the conversation with that compromise instead of at first saying what they actually want because they're so worried about the other person's opinion. So then the other person thinks that that's what they want. So then they compromise even further. And then the other person goes, great, we came to a middle ground, but it was like not even what Mal wanted in the first place.
Yeah.
I often say, like, I help them with like writing emails or work stuff or whatever. I often will say, you know, if they're texting someone back, I'll say, don't give them the rope to hang you with already. Like, come in with what you actually want first so that then the compromise is an actual compromise and not just you being like, I have to people please and say what this person wants first and, you know, or at least say something that I think they'll respond positively to first because what I want is sheerly too much, you know? Then you just end up unhappy. Like if you're that person, you will just always be unhappy with the outcome. Or don't even give them the opportunity. Like I'll be like, hey, I need to be paid back for this. But Mal will write an email and be like, hey, I need to be paid back for this. If you only want to pay me 75%, that's fine. But I'm like, don't say that. Let them ask for what they want. You know what I mean? Don't give them the things that they can then use to say back to you. So that I totally understand. So that's my advice. However, and maybe this is, hey, okay.
Don't ask me about straight culture right now.
God damn it. Okay,
No,
sorry.
You can. Oh, no,
okay, straight culture. If you could just give me
Right.
some thoughts on what this is.
So straight culture is wild. Let's start
I'm
with
aware.
that. I'm not proud to be a part of it. But I will say weddings tend to bring out sides of people that don't seem to exist outside of this like weird societal norm.
Okay.
And so I totally get wanting things to go your way on a wedding. I totally get wanting to alleviate your stress around your wedding and wanting that day to just be the way that you want it, because guess what? It probably won't be in some ways. So, you know, trying to go into it with as big of a plan as you can help. But my problem with this specific issue and compromise is that it has to do with another person's body.
Right.
And I just don't think that that is the kind of thing that we can expect to have control over of someone else.
Yes.
And so I think that this might be a case where what's really important is why doesn't this person want professional hair and makeup done?
Yes.
Because that might be really revealing, right? Maybe they don't like strangers touching them.
Maybe they have sensitive skin. Maybe Can I also just say, and no shade to hair and makeup artists for weddings, but I've never gotten my hair and makeup done for a wedding and been like, thank goodness I look great. Because you always look like some weird doll version of yourself. You don't look like yourself.
Yeah, so I'm hesitant to give specific advice about this, aside from try to get to an understanding of where they're coming from, because I think that might be really helpful to you. Like, they might just like, there might be something going on there that is like a lot deeper than you think. I just think anything that has to do with another person's body, it's different than other things, right? Like, it's different than like, can you show up at my rehearsal dinner an hour early so that you can help me set up the flowers?
Right, that's different.
Like, that's an example of taking up space in a friendship. But like, how do we go about doing it and feel comfortable asking that? I don't feel comfortable giving advice on how to do something like this because it is control over someone else's body.
I feel weird about bridesmaids' dresses. I remember my sister-in-law's wedding. She had a friend who was like a total goth, like goth.
Mm-hmm.
And then her bridesmaids' dresses were pink. And there was like a joke of the wedding was like, Danielle hates this. And I was like, why would you do this to your friend?
Yeah. It's really hard. I mean, again, like I feel like weddings are like this weird, like it's almost like the Bermuda Triangle. Like it's just like, it's this weird thing that doesn't exist in the rest of your life where like all of these wants and desires come out and these expectations. And I want to like say, to Alex, like, I totally understand where your desire for all of this comes from.
Definitely.
It is so ingrained in us. I'm sure there's also societal pressure. There's also the financial pressure, like you said, of the photos. But I think just like allowing in this instance to say, is this worth, this feels like an example to me that ultimately isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Because it can be incredibly damaging to the person.
Yeah.
Again, I could be wrong. Their reasoning might literally just be like, I'm better at doing my makeup than other people.
Yeah.
But it could be, I don't like strangers touching me.
Yeah.
Or because of the way my hair texture, I have found that
Yeah,
stylists
yeah.
don't know how to do my hair. Like, it feels like a very personal, and just, I get very worried about this.
Yeah. We don't know that Alex is straight also. Sorry to
Oh, sorry.
Alex. No, you're not. Why are you sorry? I immediately was like, this is a straight problem.
We've got a lot of problems.
But also I want to say that, I also think framing it as your friend being belligerent is interesting. Because like if it's two type A people sort of going against each other, perhaps both of you are being irrational. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's just irrational meets irrational.
Well, I kind of want to take a step back from this specific thing.
Yeah,
and instead,
yeah.
just the broader question of how do we take up more space in our friendships? How do we feel more comfortable bringing up things that are
Asking, yeah.
bothering us without the fear that they're going to leave?
Yeah.
It's been such a journey for me, like I have lost friendships where I'm like, I don't even know why I lost that friendship. So then the idea of bringing an issue to a friend, I'm like, well, if I've lost friendships over what I can't even figure out, and this, I'm like, well, maybe this would be the thing. It's really scary and it can be really triggering. And I think, again, for me, it's reminding myself that other people have agency.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That like, I am the one that is maybe going to bring this to them, but it is up to them for how they're going to handle it.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the agency in that, up until this point, they have made the active decision to be my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And that means something.
Yes.
Like I'm not forcing them, like I'm not tricking them into being my friend. I'm not
Yeah.
forcing them into being my friend. And for them to have shown up as my friend to the point where I feel like I care enough about this relationship to bring something up, that means something, you know?
And also, you can't control the other person's reaction. So they might not like it. Like what you're bringing up might be something that they feel they can't compromise on. And so then you have to then have a response to that. Like you can't just, you have to be like, okay, so if they say no, what do I say back? Or if they don't like it, what is step number 2 rather than just going into it with step number 1?
Well, see, I kind of disagree with you because I think sometimes we can plan out 7 steps in our head and it's not letting them have an authentic reaction.
Oh, no, I'm saying, yeah, like if they can have a reaction, but you just have to be, I'm not saying plan it out. I'm just saying like be like aware that they might just be like, this is not what I want. And then you can't just go, well, I stated my need.
Well, yeah, but I also think that like trying to assume their reaction does us
Yeah.
all a lot of harm, right? Because we don't know how somebody's going to react until they're reacting. I think the things that you can do is be really thoughtful about when you bring it up, you know, and noticing
Compliment sandwich.
or like that's how you bring it up. But even
Yeah.
when you bring it up, like, are they stressed on that day? Is it a bad time? Like, what? Like, are you bringing up 5 minutes before they have to go? Like, really be thoughtful
Yeah.
about like bringing it up in a time where there's time to talk about it, time to process it, when there's not external stressors as much as that's possible. But again, for me, it's been a journey of figuring out what is worth it to me. You know, what kind of friendship do I want to have with this person? There are some friends where bringing up issues aren't worth it because we're not that close.
Yeah.
But there are some friends where, like, if I feel like this is really the cost benefit analysis is leading me to believe that I need to address this,
Yeah.
then addressing it and just taking that risk and remembering friendship is an agreement.
Yeah.
And that like you're allowed to have certain standards in your friendships.
Yeah.
And that you shouldn't just take whatever friendship you can get, even
And-
though I often feel that way.
And also that you are allowed, sometimes we're just from our family of origin, we're not taught to take up space or ask for anything. But you are allowed to ask for things. You
Right.
are allowed to say, hey, can you do this instead? Can we? You know what's interesting is I never used to, like, I would always be like, oh, I'll just go pick this up or whatever. And then, like, I started being like, wait, what if I was like, can you drop this off? And sometimes people will be like, no, you need you to come pick it up. But like, sometimes they'll just be like, oh, yeah, I'm in the neighborhood. Like, I don't always have to be the person who is like martyring myself for, you know what I mean? Like, people want to do things to like, I don't know. I think, isn't there a study that like friendships are solidified by doing favors for each other?
That seems familiar.
There's like some study that's like the way to get someone to feel closer to you is to ask them to do a favor for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is people want to be there for each other when given the
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah. And if you ask someone to be there for you, then that makes them like more of your friend.
And I think another really important thing is to remember is giving them the context of why you're bringing this up in the first place.
Yeah.
And framing it in, I care so much about our friendship.
Compliment sandwich.
I care so much about our relationship that I'm willing to have this difficult and tough conversation with you because I want our friendship to be better and I want to feel good about it.
Yes. It's like with relationships. Like sometimes people bring stuff up and the other person is like, so you're leaving me. And it's like, no, just be like, hey, I'm bringing this up because I want to stay together.
Exactly.
I'm bringing this up because I want this to be fixed so we can stay together.
Exactly. And then, you know, there's always a risk involved. But guess what? There's risks involved with everything. And, you know, I've had friendships where I never brought anything up and it still ended, you know? So why not try for the friendship that you want and see what happens? And
God, please get a makeup artist that can color match to skin tone. They never can.
if you want to submit an international question, you can send it to justbetweenuspod@gmail.com. That's justbetweenuspod@gmail.com.
Up next, we've got an exciting interview with our highly esteemed guest, Gayla Turner, so stay tuned.
Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp.
How well would you take care of your car if you had to keep the same one your entire life? Well, that's how our brains work, so why don't we treat them that way?
There's plenty of ways to support a healthy brain, like learning a new language or taking power naps. But there's also BetterHelp online therapy.
I love therapy. I've been in therapy for 8 years with the same therapist. I just started couples therapy, actually, and literally being able to discuss these things out loud with someone who is like a third party has been so good for my communication with my partner. And my individual therapist has probably saved my life multiple times.
It's so important to prioritize your mental health, and one of the ways to do that is to connect with a therapist who really understands you.
BetterHelp is also online therapy, so it offers phone, video, and even live chat options for online therapy. So if you don't want to see someone on camera, you really don't have to.
And it's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you'll be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours.
And it takes a long time to find a therapist usually, so that's really cool. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/justbetweenus.
That's betterhelp.com/justbetweenus.
Just between us.
Welcome back to Just Between Us. It's time for the juiciest, most scandalous, controversial segment known to all of podcasting. Tough questions.
This week on the show, we have Gayla Turner, whose book, Don't You Dare, weaves together a current day journey of discovery and a love story that took place over a century ago. Guys, the story starts when she discovers her grandmother's hidden wedding photos dated June 8th, 1915, and learned her grandmother had a secret. Spoiler alert, they were lesbian wedding photos. Hi.
Hi, yay, lesbian wedding photos.
Oh my God, what a day to discuss this.
It is, yeah.
So this is such a wild story. And I have to say, one of the things that's really interesting about this was that you found out this story about your grandma. And then you thought to yourself, this is such an important story that I need to learn how to write so that I can then write a book about it, right? Like you didn't think of yourself as a writer in that way beforehand.
Absolutely not. I had spent most of my time in banking. So this is all kind of one of the things that it happens. And actually, I tried to get some of my friends that are writers already. They're very talented in LA. You get a lot of really talented friends. So I pitched the idea. I was telling them what I found out. I was telling about people in this secret society, about my grandmother and the wedding photos. And I'm like, don't you want to help me? Don't you want to tell the story for me? And they're just like, both of them said, no, I can't tell your story. You have to tell the story. But I'm like, I'm not a writer. So it was just a matter of just settling down and say, okay, I have a story to tell. The story wants to be told. How do I get to that point? And it was really kind of with baby steps. I mean, this is kind of a late life discovery, and had to kind of go at it and as a new approach. And learning how to do a new skill that I just never thought about.
So start at the beginning with the story. How did you find the pictures? What was your relation? I guess start with what was your relationship with your mom and your grandma before this?
My grandmother passed away when I was around 16. So, I mean, I knew who my grandmother was, but I didn't know who she was, so to speak, until actually after she had passed, quite a few years later. But my relationship with my mom has always been, or had always been good. Yeah, there was always the conflict of, okay, being the only lesbian in the family, only queer person in the family, how does that make me different from my siblings? That was always kind of an internal struggle with me. And because once I came out to my mother, she was accepting of me, although I don't think she truly understood it, but she was accepting of me.
So how did you find the photos?
Going through, my mom had, before she passed away, she had dementia. So me and my sister would often drive to where she lived, which is in Pahrump, Nevada, which is a very small town in the middle of nowhere. And we would spend time going through old family photos to kind of like, hey, Mom, remember when we did this? And hey, remember when we went to the zoo? And all those fun things that you would do with your parent growing up, and just trying to keep her engaged with not only her past, but with us as well. But it was also a part of our process of dealing with a mother that had dementia that didn't remember who we really were any longer. So it was kind of one of those things that we did it for Mom, but we also did it for ourselves. One of the times I had gone up to see my mom by myself, I was looking for some more photos to go through. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be other photos. Because, going through the same photos over and over and over is like, okay, this is like, I need something new to look at. So finding the photos in the back of a box of photos in the back of my mother's closet that said mother's old photos on it. So I'm thinking, great, I don't know what these photos are, so I'm going to start looking at them. And I opened up the box and I'm like, wow, these are really old. And I could tell instantly that they were, that black and white, and they were on black crepe paper, and there was white handwriting underneath most of the photos. And looking at the photos thinking, wow, these... I realized they weren't my mother's photos. They were her mother's photos, which was kind of that, oh, okay, this is awesome. I can now it's like a family time capsule. I can kind of learn about my family as well, because I really didn't know much about my grandmother's early days growing up in Wisconsin. Mom never really talked about it, and I didn't even know anything about it. So, looking at the photos and kind of confirming with my mom, Mom, are these grandma's photos? And she's like, yeah, but she didn't really seem interested in it themselves. She just kind of like, yeah, these are, yeah. So I kind of confirmed a few more times that this was my grandmother's photos.
And you saw in those photos what looked like a gay wedding, right? That the groom was a woman. And so what was going through your head to see photos like that from the early 1900s where you wouldn't expect to see that?
Right. Well, I mean, the feeling itself was it was overwhelming. Once I made that discovery, that aha moment that, oh my God, the groom standing next to my grandmother, not only is he not my grandfather, but he actually was a woman dressed as the groom. So that was those moments in your life where you just, everything kind of came together for me. It's like, wow, okay, I'm not the only queer person in the family. Me and my grandmother had something that was really special. We didn't know about it. I didn't know about it at the time, but we have that kind of that shared commonality of wow, we love the same way. We loved women. And it was really life affirming for me, because as much as a person feels loved and accepted within their family, feeling like you're the only one is lonely sometimes.
Did your mom have any idea what the photos were of, or that your grandmother had married a woman?
Yeah, I asked Mom several times, and what was so interesting to me is her reaction. Even though she had dementia, I wasn't sure if she really knew what I was asking her or what I was looking at, or if she was just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to play that dementia part and she won't ask me any more questions. It was hard to know really what she knew, because she was very... her reaction to it was very visceral. It was kind of like I was showing the pictures and she would just quickly look away. It was like she couldn't really look at the pictures. So I have to imagine that she did know what was in the photos, and also some of the information that I talked to her sister about the photos, because she was the only one that was alive at one point. So I asked my aunt what she knew about the photos, and she kind of indicated that because they've grown up with these boxes. I mean, literally, these boxes of photos traveled from 1915 to 2010 when I discovered it, basically from closet to closet. That's why I kind of felt that the boxes themselves had kind of a life of their own. They had a personality, and I had to kind of write about that discovery of what was inside of the boxes and what would have been like to be one of those boxes, going from home to home for so many decades. I mean, really, to carry those photos for that long, it's pretty incredible.
And so that obviously was sort of the catalyst for you to uncover more about your grandma's life. And so once you started to dive in, like, what did you uncover?
Yeah, I covered, there was not only that I found who the woman was in the photos during the wedding photos, but also discovered kind of a subculture of women that found a way to connect in a very small town in Wisconsin. So when I found this kind of group, I'm like, well, how would they do that? I'm inquisitive by nature. So I kept on kind of digging into, well, how would they have found each other? Why would they have done this? And reading some of the local newspapers there. And it's amazing what you can find online. If you go to like Ancestry.com or newspapers.com, you can read the newspapers back then, and it would give details of who was in town doing what. Who were they visiting? So you'd have articles saying, Ella was in town from San Francisco visiting her cousin Roger. And so they would have all these really intricate details about people in a very small town. Especially, it was easy to identify when a group of women would be coming in to town and who were they coming to visit. And most of them were coming to visit a woman by the name of Gayla Turner, which is no relations to me. So it started to kind of evolve. It started to become this really big picture of a storyline. When I first started writing it, I was writing more of a love story between my grandmother and Ella, because that's who I knew about at the time. But as the group got bigger and bigger and bigger, I realized it was bigger than me. It was bigger than just the wedding photos. It was a whole subculture of people that managed to find a way to connect. And I wanted to really understand that better. So that's where I started doing more and more research. And granted, I'm not a professional historian. I'm not academically trained to be a historian. So that being said, I want a full disclaimer that I'm not going to claim to know everything about LGBTQ plus history. I just know what my little world looked like, and that's what I was writing about.
How were they finding each other? Like, were they whispering the word lesbian into the wind and hoping that?
I don't even know. I think that word, I don't know if lesbian was a phrase that it would even be used back then, because there was a lot of things going on politically back then. They had the Comstock Act, which was another kind of conservative group that was using the phrase of Americanism or hyper-patriotism to keep the new Europeans that were coming over in line. So they would use that kind of hyper-patriotism to curtail people from meeting, especially in big cities. So I think that was one of the reasons that it drew a lot of people to the more rural areas, is because they wanted to be a little bit more free than being in the city where they knew there would be more scrutiny. There was also, obviously, letter writing was the primary. There was no telephones back then or anything else. So the communication would have had to have been through mail. But looking at the photos, I realized that some of the photos had different names on them underneath it. Like my grandmother's name was Ruby Peterson. But underneath her photos, a lot of times it would say Peter or Pete. So they would use kind of these code names, and my speculations, they would use these code names to communicate. So Peter or Pete would be a part of how they would communicate who was doing what and where. The other funny thing that I found out during the research is my grandmother was actually one of the phone girls in town, and that's what they called them at the time, phone girls. So she was a part of that. So then I was like, okay, well, that's really funny. That's probably another way that they would communicate, because we didn't have private phone lines at the time. A lot of them were shared lines. So she would kind of use that, my speculation, she would use that to the advantage of being able to communicate with some of the other gals in the group to say, okay, we're going to have a card party over at Cora's house this weekend. Come on over. So it was really a lot of fun to start getting into the what ifs and thinking like, okay, if I was a lesbian back then, what would I do? I'm like, I would do exactly what she's doing. I would find a way to connect with people that I related to. So that was a lot of kind of the basis of the story, is based on how would I react if I was a lesbian 100 years ago? What would my life be like?
And was she married at this time? I'm assuming at some point she had a child, she had your mom. So was she living a double life, or was this sort of before she got married? What did her life trajectory look like?
Because I'm telling the story, obviously we know kind of the end result of the storyline for her. But she did marry my grandfather, which I never met, by the way. That's why I was so curious to see what he looked like, because he left the family in 1939. They were married in 1920 or 21. There was a 5-year gap between when my grandma Ruby married Ella, or had a wedding ceremony. Obviously, weddings weren't legal back then. So it was more of a ceremony that they had for their love. So there was 5 years of that. And then she had to marry my grandfather, and that was a part of that. What was being a good American look like? And that was having a husband, having a wife, and having the kids, and having that kind of that very conventional type of life that was expected back then.
So what do you know about her relationship with your grandfather? And did you know if she was still seeing Ella, or if she had to just drop all of those friends in order to become a wife and a mother? Was that required, or was she still able to see her other friends?
Everything kind of stops when they got married, and I think that's where she had to conform. The letters that she wrote the night before she got married to Arnold, that was my grandfather, kind of tells me that she knew what she was giving up, because she was comparing, the letters that she wrote was going from sunshine to darkness, and comparing herself to being a good soldier. So it was really kind of tragic, that mentality that she had to give up that life that she loved and to conform to what was expected of her at that time.
What happened to Ella?
I'm looking at probably writing another book about Ella. She did move away. She moved away. I know exactly where she went. She went to Oregon. She went to Portland, Oregon. She was a school teacher there. She never got married, and she never moved back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it strange for you that the only reason that you exist is because your grandma did conform?
Right. And it's ironic that is how it turned out. But that's also a part of that. I believe in a fate. And I believe that that's kind of one of the things I'm supposed to discover while I'm here and tell her story. And not just her story, but for Ella and for all the other women and our queer ancestors, because there's a lot out there with queer ancestry, and it's just the stories aren't being told. You're starting to see sprinkles of photos showing now. There's some really wonderful photos are getting revealed with men and the women of that era, and it's really touching to see how they had to have loved, how brave that they would be or have to be at that time to love the person that they wanted to be with.
So do you feel like you just talked about that you believe in fate? Do you feel that it's like fate that you're also a queer woman?
Yeah, and I think that's a part of it. I think it's all a big package to have that experience, because honestly, if my brother or sister would have found, or anybody else would have found those photos, they would not have known what to look at. They would not have seen the hair tucked underneath the hats. They wouldn't have seen the pant legs and the cuffs rolled up because they're too big for the women. They wouldn't have known that. And so it was fate, because it's right that moment at that time. That's when the photos needed to be discovered. And I think I was ready to make that discovery, and the story was ready to be told.
I find it so fascinating how I'm also deep into learning about lesbians in the 1920s for a project I'm working on. But they're based in New York City, so not very rural. I find it so interesting that back then and now how tied gender is to everything, right? The going by the nickname Pete and dressing in a masculine manner to indicate that you are interested in women. And even I think a lot about the language that gay men used, where the reason that gay men call each other she to this day is because they used to use she to refer to each other so they wouldn't get caught dating other men.
Right.
So when someone says to you oh, all of this stuff is new and it's a trend or whatever, how do you respond to that based on everything that you've learned?
I just have to say that we've been here all along. Being queer is nothing new in society. We've been here, even if you go back to Roman era, we've been here all along. We really have had to live in the background of society because that's what we had to do to survive for so many years. And we didn't just show up 50 years ago saying, hey, we want to get married. We've always been here. And it's just a matter of peeling back the layers and understanding that we've been here, and our story deserves to be told. We played an important part of history. We always have. Now it's just bringing that history to light and exposing it and letting people know that, yes, we've been here all along. It's amazing to me. I always talk to people. It doesn't matter if they're straight or whatever. They'll always say, yeah, I think my Uncle Sam was maybe, he might have been gay. Or my aunt so-and-so, yeah, she never got married, but we kind of suspect. I get that so often. It's pretty amazing that, you start talking about, our queer ancestors, and so many people are like, yeah, we always thought that she might, because she never got married. She always had this friend with her. I'm like, yeah, she's gay. Yeah. So it's exciting to tell that story, and I learned so much along the way about our history and the way we tell our history, and I hope I've done it justice, because like I said, this is not my primary. I'm a late in life writer, but now I've got the bug. I just can't wait to tell more stories about our ancestry and how we got here and how do we evolve. And, I want to tell that story not only for ourselves, but for the younger people.
Yeah.
Of letting them know what our history looked like. Especially today, a lot going on politically. It's important that we're seen and that we can represent, and the representation does matter, because the rights that we have today clearly are in jeopardy with what's going on with Roe versus Wade. It's petrifying, and we have to look at that and understand that that's at risk. If people think that they won't go after gay marriage, they're not paying attention. It's something that we have to know, but it's important to know our history as it stands, and that we have been here, and not to give up on that, but just to keep going, but don't take it for granted. We just got to get out there and vote and show that we deserve to be here, and they can't erase us, even though they would like to erase us. They would like to erase the word gay. They like to ban our books. We just can't let that happen.
There's a lot of oh, this is all sort of brand new, but honestly, what happens is that they're banning legal gay marriage. They're banning, legal gay gatherings, legal gay, whatever. But all of this stuff, like your grandmother's marriage, it's happening anyway. The love is still being celebrated. They're still getting married. I think like it's like an underground mimicking of like normative society that has always been there. When people are like trans and non-binary people are new, I'm like, not. Do you know Billy Tipton? Like, not really.
Right. No, not at all. Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's so important to get those stories out there, because we have to be visible. We have to make sure that we don't take that for granted, because a lot of people would like to have that go away.
We're going to take a quick break, but stick around. Most of you have probably heard us sing the praises of Prose, the world's most personalized hair care. And for those that haven't, let us tell you about the incredible results you'll see using customized Prose products.
My hair is pretty short, but I dye it all the time, and Prose has really improved the texture of my hair. It smells so good. It makes my hair smooth. It makes it easier to style it. It's just like, I recommended it to my mom yesterday.
Prose knows there is more to you than just your hair type. Prose has given over 1 million consultations with their in-depth hair quiz, which is how we got started.
I move around a lot, and because I have 2 places that I live, and I have been able to, on the quiz, answer questions about my zip code, answer questions about like the damage level of my hair, depending on how often I've dyed it. The questions are super interesting because they're taking into account so many aspects to give you the best hair care.
As a carbon neutral certified B Corp, Prose is an industry leader in clean and responsible beauty. All their ingredients are sustainably sourced, ethically gathered, and cruelty-free. They're also the first custom beauty brand to go carbon neutral.
If you're not 100% positive Prose is the best hair care you've had, they will take the products back, no questions asked.
Prose is the healthy hair regimen with your name all over it. Take your free in-depth hair consultation and get 15% off your first order today.
Go to prose.com/justbetweenus. That's prose.com/justbetweenus for your free in-depth hair consultation and 15% off.
Just between us.
And we're back. Do you think your grandmother would be pissed that she was outed?
I don't think so. No, I really don't. I think, when I found the photos and I made that realization, I just, the feeling I had, and I have to believe that she was with me at that moment, just hugging me and saying, thank you for finding my story and telling me, thank you for finding me. I think she was hidden in that box literally for so long. I think she'd be thrilled. I really do. I can't see it any other way. I think she would get a hoot out of all this going on and her story being told and Ella's story. And I think she would really enjoy it.
Did you reach out to Ella's family at all?
I have not. No. Actually, one of the things I want to do is probably go there. I found that, when I was writing the book, I did a lot of research online, which is all wonderful. It gives me good data that for lack of a better word. By going in there itself, you find so much more information just by going to the libraries or going to the archive. I went to the Amherst, Wisconsin library 2 times during the process of writing the book just to kind of be there. And I found newspaper articles and things that were not digitized yet that I found in their archive that I wouldn't have found if I had not been there. And just being there was really important for me to feel the story, just to kind of walk the same streets that she did and what would have been like living kind of that parallel journey and it was kind of surreal at some points because I felt that it was living a current life and also living a past life at the same time, which was really interesting for me. It was like I had to kind of like shake my head once in a while just to say, wait a minute, what year is this? Because I feel like I'm back in 1915. So I have to, but it was fun being there. I have to say, I was doing the research and being there where the wedding photos took place. It was magical to me because it felt that it was the right thing to do to make that kind of that pilgrimage to where the wedding took place. And I was there on the 100-year anniversary of the photos when it was taken, just to kind of experience and look around. And it was a very small town and a very small house in the middle of on the outskirts of a small town. So just being there itself was really magical for me.
Wow.
Do you think that, once you're grandpa left the family, do you think that your grandma had any other, relationships that she maybe kept secret from her kids?
I don't know. She never remarried. I looked for anything else that would tell me kind of where she was, or, photos that she might have had and dates. There's really nothing. It's kind of like, it's almost that her life, for lack of a better word, kind of ended at that point of having to conform. There wasn't a lot of happiness in her life other than probably having her children. Because one thing I remember of my grandmother, and my mom would even say, she goes, your grandmother's never been happy a day of her life. And I kind of go, now I know why.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, now I get it. A lot of things that were said back then, I understand it now. And I wouldn't understand it as a straight person. And I don't think I would have understood it if I found it 20 years ago. I think I'm in the right space and the right time to understand really what her life may look like before she got married to my grandfather and possibly afterwards as well.
Yeah.
That's like heartbreaking
It
to
really
hear that
is.
like your mom's opinion of her
I
was
know.
someone who was miserable. But it sounds like from what the letters you read when she was living her true life, she wasn't that way, and she was full of love and
Right.
hope and
Yeah. And happy. I mean, the photos themselves they're so funny and witty. I mean, there's a lot of photos that are just because she took a lot of time to put little captions underneath her photos. They were funny. I mean, they were like stuff I would write now. It's like kind of like, wow, she was kind of before her time as far as just documenting the photos and how they were very funny and very witty and very loving towards each other. And it was beautiful to see the photos. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to be able to look at her life and kind of write about that.
Is the rest of your family supportive of the project?
They are. I think it took them a while to understand why it was so important. They're kind of like, and they're like, for a long time, they're like, oh, yeah, you're writing a book. Okay, yeah. But like, no, I'm really writing a book. Because no one knew me as, a lot of my friends didn't even know that I was writing a book. A lot of them were like, until like it even came out, they're like, wait a minute, you've been writing a book all this time? I'm like, yeah. So I think my sister is wonderfully supportive. She gets it. I think, it was, like I said, hard for them to understand the importance and why I had to write about this and tell this bigger story because but they wouldn't understand it. How would they?
Yeah.
They didn't have to live the life. And the life I live in Los Angeles, California versus any other places in the country, I feel blessed to be here because it's still scary in some of the places in the United States and in the world to be queer. So I really am thankful that I had the opportunity to live where I am. But that's also a part of the message is like, even if you think you're the only queer in town, in a little town in Arkansas, and no family members are queer, nobody's queer except for you in this little town, I've got to say that's wrong. You're not alone. We've always been here. We always will. And that person is not alone. And we wanted to honor them as well.
Thank you so much. They're so beautiful and sad and tragic. And I think highlights what's going on today with like we've always been here, we'll always be here, we'll always be fighting. And all you're doing is hurting people by not allowing them to be who they are and creating generations of pain because it reverberates.
Yeah,
So
it does.
I don't have a smooth transition here, but would you like to play a game show?
I would love to play again. Yay!
Woo! Different
We need a game
tone. Totally different.
So this game show is called Hypotheticals. You and Gabby are my contestants.
Oh no.
I'm going to give you a series of hypothetical situations. You can ask any clarifying questions you might have, and then you tell me what you would do, and then I get to decide if there's a winner, who the winner is. Maybe I'm the winner. We'll see. It's not fair.
It's not fair at all.
And that one bit.
Life. And that's how it is.
Okay, so our first game is America's favorite game show. We asked, they answered. Would you stay with this cheater?
Okay.
Your partner of 4 years has always used sex as a way to release stress. One day, they are about to give a big speech at a work conference and are so nervous that they sleep with their favorite coworker to self-regulate. They then crush the speech. Would you stay with this cheater?
No way. That's crazy.
Now, hold on.
I mean,
What?
what?
If they crush the speech, what happens then? Like
They
what?
got a big promotion.
And a raise?
A raise, promotion. Gabby's very financially motivated. Now they're also asked to consult, so they're really next echelon of their career.
Do we have a prenup?
You're actually not married.
You said spouse.
I said partner.
God damn it.
Oh, yeah, that's probably
Okay, and 4 years isn't enough for common law. Okay, so
No.
so I can't divorce them and get money. Okay. I think that they need to go to sex and love addiction. They need to go to group therapy.
Okay, so you would say we need to work on this, but you wouldn't bail.
Yeah, I would say here are my conditions.
You're so nice.
I need you. My conditions.
You're bailing.
You're bailing.
I'm totally out of here. No, I'm out.
I would say maybe we need to go into some sort of sex addiction therapy, rehab, something.
What if they called you right before and said, "Hey, can I do this? It's the only way I'm going to be able to give a good speech."
No, I mean you have other options to release. I'm just saying, take care of yourself. Stay on the phone if you want. But
Right. Why couldn't we have done phone sex?
Well, it's interesting it took you this long to think of that.
God damn it. The answer was right there.
Okay, our next game. Are you a terrible parent? Your child, 8, loves to be in water, but refuses to learn how to swim and instead relies on floaties. You move to a new house with a pool and tell your kid that until they learn how to swim, the pool will be drained and empty. For 3 years, it remains empty until their friends peer pressure them into learning how to swim so they can use the pool. Are you a terrible parent?
I think draining the pool is kind of, I think I live in California, so I'm thinking all that water to waste, really? And I'm thinking, no, it's a terrible water waste. I don't want to do it. I don't think you're a bad parent. I think you're just you're not using common sense to say, can we go get lessons for you for a little Jimmy or whatever? So I don't think you're a bad parent. I just think it's not a good use of water.
I can't swim in my own pool.
Right. So that's the other thing is now no one in the home is having access to the pool that is right there. So you're also kind of punishing yourself, your spouse, and your other child.
Yeah, you're a terrible parent. That's so dumb. I hate it. Also,
I don't think it's a terrible parent. I just think you're not very smart. It just doesn't seem to make sense.
unless you're using that
Really?
pool as like a skateboarding, you know what
There
I
you
mean?
go. That's got, see, yeah.
Am
That's
I
what I'd be doing.
very into skateboarding?
No. You actually were once robbed by a skateboarder, so you hate them.
Oh,
Yeah, they robbed you real quick, though, because they just scooted right by.
oh my God, that's so sad.
Skateboarders, I just want to say for real that skateboarders face a lot of discrimination in terms of loitering laws.
They do.
So
Yeah.
maybe they needed to rob me.
And why would that be?
I don't know. Fill the pool. Fill the pool. Fill the pool.
Fill the pool.
Fill the pool. Your husband and your other
That's what I'm
child
saying.
start unionizing. Fill the pool.
I feel like, in a way, I don't think this person's actually a terrible parent because pool safety is very important. And so for you to have a filled pool with a child who doesn't know how to swim can be very dangerous.
Put up a gate. Do what my parents did. 1,
Yeah.
my parents put up a gate. And 2, also, I grew up in Florida. You throw that baby in the water and it'll learn.
All right. And that's why we're afraid for you to have children. Okay, our final game. Would you forgive this liar? You show up to your office Christmas party and notice that one of your colleagues is wearing the exact same outfit as you. You both laugh and joke about it and end up spending the evening hanging out and getting closer. 5 years later,
No.
while drunk on vacation together,
No.
because you have become so close,
No.
they admit that they saw what you ordered on your computer and bought the same outfit on purpose to get closer to
No.
you. Would you forgive this liar?
I think I would. I mean, it came from an honest place. Like, it's not like mean or anything that they were trying to undercut your appearance. They were like kind of like I think it's kind of flattering, actually. I think it'd be, well, that's kind of cute, a little weird, a little creepy.
Gayla, this person is trying to murder you.
No, they're
This
trying to
person-
be your
No.
friend.
No,
We-
they are single white femaling you as we speak.
But it worked because you're still friends 5 years later.
But how do I know that they're not just saying yes to everything? Like if I'm like, I love this movie, and they're like, I also love this movie. Like, how do you know that that's their real opinion?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, nobody here is trying to protect themselves except for me, who is very paranoid.
I would rather have a friend.
Whatever.
I just like to have friends.
You're gonna be the person in the true crime documentary who they're like, her smile lit up a room and she was so trusting, and then the other person killed you.
How am I in the documentary then if I'm
The
dead?
documentary's about you.
Oh,
You're
okay.
the victim.
I'm a star?
You're the star.
Ooh, I've been waiting a long time to star in something. Okay, so you guys have had very different opinions about almost all of these.
Yeah, it turns out the queer community is not a monolith.
You heard it here first, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find your book and everything that you're doing?
Right now it's on Amazon, but it's sold out on Amazon. So I'm trying to get more books to them. But locally, there's at Vroman's and Books Soup in Hollywood.
IndieBound. Go to IndieBound.
Yeah, I had that on IndieBound as well.
Great.
Amazing.
Yeah, but it's actually sold out quite a few places, which is good. Just need to get more books in supply.
That's
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. But you can go to my website, GaylaTurner.com, and there's events on there and also more photos that you can take a look at to kind of see some of the history that I'm talking about.
Photos are adorable.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
are.
We really appreciate this.
Thank you, guys. It was awesome. It was so much fun.
Yay.
So nice to meet you.
Stick around after the break. We'll be talking all about the January 6th hearings.
Oh, boy.
Fun stuff.
Hey, we all hit the snooze button sometimes, but you don't want to hit snooze on your personal goals. That's why I highly recommend a new podcast that's been inspiring me lately.
Snooze from LAS Studios helps real people create action plans to face their fears, achieve their dreams, and reach their goals. Whether it's finishing the creative project you've been working on for years, learning to drive a car, or planning the trip you've always wanted to take, this podcast can help you close the gap between where you are and where you want to be.
It's a show about the things people put off, how they conquer them, and most importantly, how they conquer themselves. Tune in every week wherever you get your podcasts to hear host Megan Tan and the Snooze Squad share advice and wisdom on how to stop putting off the things that matter to you.
So go ahead, follow Snooze on your favorite podcast app. Welcome back to Just Between Us. It's time for topic.
XXXXXX, baby. Baby.
Yeah,
There it is.
There's Melissa.
Melissa's here because this is a topic that we all love to be we're just being angry about. So
Yeah, so I wanted to pick the January 6th hearings because obviously it's a huge national event that's going on. But I also wanted to get your thoughts on, like, does it matter? Like, you know, because the hearings they don't have the ability to indict anyone or
Right.
to have criminal charges. It's basically them making a case for the Justice Department to then bring criminal charges if they want to, which I doubt will happen.
right.
But I also think that, like, for history, it is important that this happens. Do you agree with that?
Okay. I just rewatched The Big Short. And at the end of The Big Short, they do this whole thing where they're like, and then all the bankers and all the people that knew about this and all the people that were creating these like mortgage bundles and whatever, then they all went to jail and everything changed. Just kidding. And then they're like, one guy went to jail and he was just a guy who worked for Credit Suisse and he went to jail for like faulty mortgage, whatever. One person out of all of these people that created this crisis, 2008 recession, one person went to jail who like barely had anything to do with it. So that's what I feel like is happening here. it didn't end up doing anything. I mean, yes, things changed in terms of the way that mortgages are bundled or whatever, but like not that much. And like all this stuff still kind of happens in this more like backwards, less overt way. But that's what I think. So what? They're going to send like one person to jail and then what?
Well, I don't even think that the hearing is meant to
Yeah,
be about putting people in jail. I think it's to have this all be on the record.
That's all it is. It's theater, basically, and putting everything on the record and messing with General Hospital every day.
But I do think that it's important because imagine if we didn't have it,
I know.
Then no one would remember it.
right? And now they're releasing more information. We're getting all of these interviews. Like, do I think that these hearings will directly tie to people changing their vote? No.
Because the people that would change votes, they're not watching it and it's not airing on the station of those people that votes would need to change.
But I do think in a government that has lost so much credibility, to not do this would lose them even more.
Yes.
I guess the idea is to have everything put into the public record and then to have like a clear timeline and like idea of what's happened for future generations, for the history of America, rather than sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah, and I think there is also an optimistic, if not maybe not realistic, hope that there are all these people that are running for office who are an active part of this. And so hoping that this will prevent them from either winning election or re-election. That part, I'm like, I hope that happens. Will it? I don't know. But I do think that the choice not to have the hearings would have been a mistake.
Correct. 100% agree. Because then it just seems like everybody's just lying down and doing nothing.
Right.
It's still, like I said, it's still theater, but it needs to be put into public record.
Right. It's truly mind-boggling, the things that are coming out of this hearing.
Can I be frank with you all in the audience?
You have never done that before,
Who's
so
frank?
I'm scared.
I've been off Twitter since September 2020. And until you put this on the docket of things for us to talk about, I have not given it a thought.
Really?
Nope. I don't know about it. I barely think about it. I don't see it. I'm kind of in this weird position where I'm so checked out of the news that I'm getting a sense as to how our parents or how people are getting swayed in these ways. Because when I was talking about, I think on this show about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard hearing, like if somebody came to me today that I loved and trusted and said X, Y, and Z is what's happening, and that's what everyone on Twitter is saying, and that's what everyone in the news is saying, and I didn't like look it up myself, I'd be like, that seems right. I am sort of in this place where I feel like I'm the average person. Like where like if you're just like a guy and you work painting bridges in fucking rural, let's say Alabama, you're not on Twitter, you don't look at anything like that, you just like go home to your family, and then someone you know says, yeah, the hearings it's all a conspiracy just to, make sure that Trump doesn't win again. How do if I don't have any like marginalized group, like if I don't have any sort of like, oh, I should care about this because I'm a woman, I should care about this because I'm trans, I should care about politics, X, Y, and Z. Why would I? Like, I feel like I completely understand why the average voter is just like not invested in any of this stuff because it doesn't affect their material day-to-day life. Do you know what I mean? Like if you just like go home and you're like, God, I hope I can pay my water bill, like you're not like on Twitter being like fighting with some person with a blue check mark.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like I feel like
it makes sense, but I guess I don't quite know where you're going with that.
My point is that I think that these people won't change their votes.
Like, but that's not what we're saying.
I know, but I think like where the idea is like, well, it'll put on the record that these politicians were bad and then the votes will change. Like that guy doesn't care.
I don't think it's for vote. Really don't think it's for votes to change. It's more for this is American history that's being written down. I don't think no one's vote's going to change because of this.
But then how do we know that Trump doesn't get reelected and then just go into the archives and tear everything up?
Well, because people have videos.
Yeah, there's not just written record, there's video record, and it's
but then
across multiple stations.
That guy just goes, it's a deep fake. Like, I think we're in a much dire situation than people are realizing.
I'm not arguing with that at all. I guess I'm just saying that, like, it's just this frustrating thing where, like, I'm glad that the hearings are happening, but it will also be really hard to see. I mean, I definitely think you're right that everyone's living in a vacuum, and a lot of the people that need to see this content is never going to see it. But I do think that most likely Democratic opponents will be pulling clips from these hearings in their ads against a lot of candidates who were directly involved. But I think what needs to happen even more is the fucking Justice Department needs to actually indict Trump.
Right. And I don't think that's ever going to happen.
And that's not going to happen. Other countries have done it, though.
I know. Gabby, I have a question. Would you prefer, like, do you think, like, they should do nothing?
No, I don't think they should do nothing, but I just don't. Sometimes I think that there's this, like, Democrat idea of if we just, like, do all these things correctly, everything will turn out. But, like, I don't know. Like, to me, I don't think it changes anything. I don't think it affects anything. Like, I don't think, like, the random person who's, like, obsessed with Joe Rogan and, like, is, thinks that all the videos are probably deep fakes. Like, it's too late. Like, it doesn't matter.
I disagree with you. I think it matters, for these people who are finally getting to share their stories, like even just on an individual level, for the Capitol Police to be able to say what it was like for them, for these election workers who were targeted by Trump and Giuliani to be able to say how their lives have been ruined for doing nothing wrong, even on just this individual level for these people who went through that day and then went through the attacks about the election being a fraud, for them to get a voice and to get to say, what happened. Like, will it change people's votes? But for us not to do anything, I think having the hearings is a neutral move. Whereas the choice to not have the hearings would be a bad move, if that makes sense. Like, it would do more. I don't know how much good the hearings will do, but not having the hearings, I think, would do more bad, because it would just, like, I think we need to be fighting on so many different fronts. And this is one front. Will it be the most effective way? No, but it is still an effort.
Yeah. I don't want our audience to, like, think whatever of me. But truly, when you were like, let's talk about these, I was like, oh, are those still going on? Like, I have no, and like, I can imagine a guy who's like, or some person being like, if it doesn't immediately get me a $7 raise so that I can fill my gas tank, or if it doesn't directly affect, like, my diabetic child, then, like, I really don't give a fuck about this, like, shit coming out on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is the, like, gap that the Democrats have, which is just like,
but I feel
this
like
really matters, and we need to, like, put this out, and we need to, like, be having these hearings, and, like, like, the people that are actually, like, suffering don't care.
I don't know. What you're saying isn't sitting right with me.
I just don't think, like, even if you're not, like, some white guy, if you're just, like, a poor person who, like, is trying to make ends meet, like, out in some sort of, like, urban wasteland area, you're not, like, watching these things happening on TV. You don't care.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there are people that do care.
Yeah.
Regardless of economic status.
But what is it going to do for you day to day?
Gabby, the president actively tried to overthrow a free election. So for us to say, oh, who cares? Because some people won't watch that on the news.
I'm not saying
is a big leap in logic.
I'm not saying who cares, but I'm saying, like, they're not going to indict him. It doesn't matter. They overturned Roe v. Wade. Like, things are coming and happening. And, like, this idea that, like, well, if we just get it on the record, it's like, okay, like, they're going to just, I feel like it's us being like, but the record says, as we're being, like, pushed to the death camps. Like, it doesn't matter.
But the record isn't, it's not like, oh, and okay, I agree that at 100% there are really bad things happening and that we need to, like, continue to fight for them. But you're just sort of being like, well, who gives a like.
No, I think it's the wrong focus. I'm not saying who gives a shit, but I think we got to focus elsewhere.
I think this is part of the focus.
Right.
Like, you have to do this. This is part of the process.
And no one's saying it's all of the process.
Right. But if we don't do it, then it could be more detrimental than not.
Right. Like, I like, you're sort of approaching it with this, like, well, if it's not fix it 100% overnight, then what's the point? But like, it's all there's so many different pieces to this pie. And I think that putting all of this on record and I mean, I think also some of this might be that you're not following any of it, but what is coming out is really, really bad.
I know that it is, but I guess it's just kind of, I just have a problem sometimes where I feel like the Democrats are doing this kind of thing and then the Republicans are like, abortion is illegal and you will now all die. And we're like, well, it's a good thing we're getting all this stuff out in court. Like it doesn't, like, I feel like a lot of times the Democrats are doing these kinds of things that like we think are, I don't know. I just worry that there's this like focus on doing what's right and like making sure that things are right. But the other side is just like, now you're all dead.
But I think that Democrats should be doing both, though. I think they should be doing what's right and then also getting in the gutter and playing dirty.
Yeah.
Like you still have to follow a certain process. And
do we?
Yes.
The other side isn't at all. Trump is going to get elected again. They're not playing. There's no benefit to play. Like it's a waste of our energy. I'm finding like there's no benefit to, I don't know. I just feel like it's like, well, we still have to hold to the way the government works. And it's like, they're not.
We still need to uphold because if we don't uphold, then we're no better than they are.
I'm glad we can take our morality with us to
but I'm saying we need to but I'm saying we need to do both. It's not just we have to still like do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But they still need to get in the gutter and play dirty.
Yes.
Right. They're not mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I worry that they are.
Well, I don't know. And I don't think that they are. I think that for us not to have had these hearings would have been a mistake. Do I think that the hearings will fix everything? Absolutely not. I think both of those things can be true.
What are some of the worst things that are coming out?
I mean, Trump basically asked the guy in Georgia to just find him the 11,000 votes.
But we kind of all knew that, didn't we?
But to get this on the public record with the person he asked directly saying that.
Yeah.
It was speculated, but now it's a fact.
Will that stop him from winning again?
It's so hard to talk to you sometimes. I really find it difficult to talk to you.
But is that going to stop him from winning again?
I mean, if they indict him, it hopefully would. But that, but like,
I feel like he could get elected again whilst sitting in jail.
I agree with you. But I also think
he basically said the same thing before he was even elected.
Right.
But I again, like, I think that this is also proving that there was no election fraud, which I think is helpful for that to be on public record. I like it. You're so defeatist and so like, I'm
not defeatist. I think
with,
I want to fight from different angles. I want to fight differently.
But there's also, think about like older people out to dinner with their conservative friends who have been watching the hearings, and for them to be able to say, and this was proven in Congress. They have video footage of the testimony of the election representative saying that this happened. It gives them a little more ammunition to talk to their conservative friends when it's been in Congress than when it's like, oh, NBC News reported this. Do you know, like we don't know what kinds of conversation, like I think that this will massively change people's opinion? No, but I do think that it gives people a lot more tangible things to point to when talking to the people in their lives who are conservative and who maybe are just conservative because that's how they grew up.
Yeah. I just am tired of our side flaying ourselves open to have no results. Like, Christine Blasey Ford, like being like describing her rape, and then it just like doesn't matter. And now Brett Kavanaugh's on the like. I just am like, my solutions, I can't discuss them here because I will end up on a watch list.
And look, I believe in those solutions too, but again, I guess I just don't think it's all. I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah,
agree.
Don't put me on a government watch list.
You're already on a few. Well, what do we rate this roller coaster of an episode?
12 out of 11. I can't tell you what my strategy is, but you all know what it is.
I rated 32 out of 27 grandparents who surprise us.
Yeah.
I rated 72 out of 60 I'm not associated with Gaby.
Thank you to Gayla Turner for being our guest. Join us next week for another rousing episode of Just Between Us.